Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Brandon Clements, and welcome back to Glasshand. Now, it's been a while since I've done a video, so I want to show you guys what I'm really excited about today, and that is the Unity HD render pipeline. So if you're not familiar, this will kind of just be an overview video. It's going to show one of my projects that I'm doing right now just for fun. Now, this project was built in 3 days with the latest build of Unity, which is 2018.3, I believe. So some of you guys know that I had done a game in 2015 with my good friend Benjamin James, and he's a programmer and I'm a 3D artist, so we came together to make this VR title called Housekeeping VR. And I'll link that in the description below if you want to check that out, and that was made in the Unreal Engine. Since then, I've just kept my eye on what Unity has to offer, and I've really just grown to be super excited about the engine, and I've been doing a lot of different things for clients in it, so it's been absolutely amazing to use that as another tool. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this build, and I'm just going to go ahead and launch the actual test so we can look at it. So as this is coming up, we are actually going to see here, this is just a kitchen. So this is made with Cinemachine and the HD render pipeline. So all of these different virtual cameras have different post-processing effects. So this first one has that depth of field to the rack focus with an animated transform that goes back. And now you can see we have like this nice bloom and diffusion with another camera that's moving on a dolly track. And then we get a little bit of a more handheld feel here. With this camera that's moving around the countertop and this kind of panning down, like kind of crane shot onto the actual oven here. And so far, just working with the HD render pipeline and using some of these assets, the only complaint that I have is the anti-aliasing. I think with the temporal anti-aliasing in Unity, that's one thing that you can see in some of these shots that it's, you know, we wish that it was a little bit softer, and there's some different settings that you can mess with. But that's the only real complaint that I have with this. So now, as we actually take control, you can see right after the Cinemachine is done with, we can actually look around in a first-person view and just kind of get a look at the landscape, so to speak. So we can come up here, actually see some of these screen space refractions here on these bottles, and then you can see some of these little chrome pieces, and as we move down you can see it's kind of just all dressed and kind of set here. So it's pretty awesome, and it's actually pretty easy to set up a project like this. There's a few caveats, but all in all it's pretty great. So let's go ahead and jump into the engine. Okay, so today is kind of just going to be an overview of how to set up this project, work in it a little bit. If you guys want to see more in-depth videos about starting from scratch, maybe how to set up an HD render pipeline project and kind of take it to the next level, I would love to show that off. But today, I just want to kind of just review this a little bit. So one of the cool things and one of the hardest things for me to actually get right in this project was different LODs. So it's really easy to set up LODs inside of Unity. But the one thing that makes it hard to do is make sure that these light maps, as it goes from LOD 1 to 2, remain the same. So even as we get closer, and we have to get really close to invoke LOD 0, you can see the light maps don't change at all. Now, the cool thing is I have a script from another extremely talented Unity artist. And what this does, this light mapped LOD, which I will link in the description so you can download it from his GitHub. What this will do is at runtime on Awake, I believe, this will swap the light map from this LOD to LOD 0. So you don't need to place anything on these components. What you need to do is just map them to the different LOD 1, 2, and 3, depending on how many you have. And you can see each of them has this light map LOD script. So like I said, it will just swap them out, so you don't have to worry about it. You can see here that I don't even have these baking as light maps. So LOD 1, 2, and 3 do not have light map invoked on the flag, but you can see here LOD 0 is going to bake. And this is going to be the highest scale in the light map. And then it will just swap it on runtime, which is awesome because that has always been the most annoying thing. How I generated these LODs is actually from Simply Gone, and you can see that these are actually great. You can, from LOD 0 to 1 to 2, you can't even really see the polygonal count changing. There's nothing that's like really flickering. There's nothing that's happening to actually invoke visually that there's something swapped. And obviously you can add multiple renderers inside of here. So what you can do is just with this cabinet group, once you have your LOD set up and you have it inside of this LOD group, you just drag 0, and it's easier if you actually lock. And then you can drag 0 into 0, 1 into 1, and so on and so forth until you get the absolute perfect look to these. So this is really great for CAD files, obviously. And this GE oven right here, this is from their website, and this is a CAD model that I had cleaned up. It was just an absolute mess when you actually look at it. But when you're going back here, you can see the corresponding changes. So since this scene is actually really close together, we're not seeing like very large draw distances. What you can do is come into your project settings and go down to quality, and you can actually set the LOD bias right here. So I think by default it's 2. And when you have a lower value, it allows the camera view to adjust accordingly. So all of these you can change just by changing it to a double arrow, left clicking and dragging to get the distance right. But having an LOD bias that is lower will allow you to do some of these closer swaps with these assets here in the kitchen. So this is a per scene global control that you would have to actually set. Another big feature that I'm using inside of Unity is timeline. So I actually just have an empty object that I named timeline, and you can see here these are all the different bindings and the corresponding objects that play within the scene, and you get this playable director here. So it'll play on wake, and you basically can go up to window, and I believe it's under sequencing and then timeline. So that's how you can bring up this window here. And you can see as I scrub with the game view, we can get a preview of what's happening here. And in the scene view, you can see the post-processing happening. And then we have this nice transition that goes into our FP controller here, which was made by Mo Baker, which is something you can find on the asset store. This was something that I just installed into the project. And then if you come under the camera here, I added another virtual camera script for Cinemachine. So, and then I turned body, aim, and everything to do nothing and set my lens. And then the actual brain on the main camera here on Cinemachine, you can see I can have these clips and watch this live camera down here. It actually, as the clip changes, we transition to another virtual camera. And if you've seen any of Adam Myhill's talks about Cinemachine, it's an amazing tool. I mean, it's probably one of the best camera systems I've ever worked with in any 3D application or DCC. It's just absolutely amazing. But what it is I have this VC group, and these are all the different virtual cameras and the dolly tracks, and you can see the iconic representation in the viewport here. But what I'm doing is just going up to Cinemachine, and then I'm going to create a new virtual camera, and then I go ahead and create a new clip just by right-clicking in this track, and then add Cinemachine shot. So that allows me to then just drag in what virtual camera I want from the hierarchy. So you can actually swap this around. It's very much like video editing. If you've ever used a nonlinear editor, it's exactly like that. And it's just so cool because you can actually animate different attributes. So one of the things that I have here is, this is kind of out of order. It's really out of whack because I had changed it a lot. But let's just go ahead and just bring these two up. I can tell that they correspond with this camera just from one. It says CMV Cam 5, which goes with this clip, and then I know that this target is actually working with that same corresponding camera. So it's all, like I said, I put this together in like 3 days, so it's not organized at all. But just stay here with me, and basically what we're doing is we're having this be the target for the virtual camera, the target 04, which should be right there. Yep. So on the virtual camera, I just drag in the look at target, which is just a null in this case. And the null is actually animated around the same time as the camera is moving in its position. So this is locked to an actual dolly. So you can see track dolly, which is Cinemachine, and you just add a camera with a track. So that will give you both the track and the camera already attached to it. Just really quickly, you can add it. And then this path position is what I'm animating under this guy right here. So this track has the animation, and it's so easy. The way that you add it, it's you just basically click on the camera, and you can drag this into a new track down here. So if I just added it as a new track, you do add animation track. What that will do is just create the actual track, and then you hit the record button. The record button will then allow you to set keyframes on any of these attributes, which is awesome. I mean, it's so easy to do. So basically, I set a key. You can right click and add a key on path position 0, and then you come to the end of the shot, and you guessed it, you add another number there. So 0 to 1 is from path position 0 to 1. Now the dolly tracks can actually have more waypoints than just that. So you could do this crazy like dolly track. So let me just, for instance, add another one so you can see it. In the viewport, you can see it adds it there. So you can see 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then it will do this nice Bezier kind of curve. So you can just like make this crazy roller coaster of a track and just keep adding. And then you can come down. So you could do this crazy shot around the room. And if I just left it like that, we can go back to the track and you can see it just goes, well, we actually would have to animate the time. So let's just do that real quick so you can see it. We'll go to that key. You can also expand it by just clicking on this little graph. So if you actually click on the key and then right click and edit key, you can put the value in. So I can't remember how many we actually added. I think it's something like 4. So after that, you can see we have this crazy kind of this track with just this with the camera moving on it, and it looks jerky here because it has to actually calculate. So as I'm scrubbing, it's kind of weird. But if I actually go into play mode and I have it set to maximize on play, you can see we're gonna ride that dolly course all the way out. So you can do some really crazy shots just coming around. You can see obviously the target is moving later, animating later than the track. So that's something really cool. I've had a lot of fun messing around with the Cinemachine and timeline. I mean, it's just, there's so much you can do with it. It's amazing. So I'll continue on. I'll stop gloating over it. But the way that these are actually changing, let me go ahead and turn the stats off here so we don't have to look at any of the statistics. If we click on the actual camera itself, we have the virtual camera settings. But what you can do is under here there is an override. So you can say I want to add a post-processing to this. So it will actually create a new post-processing layer for you. You just had to click new. You can actually say that that maybe if there's a target in the scene, you can use that as a focus for your actually new depth of field. For instance, right here, I just added bloom. So this is the default bloom that's in the project, but I can override that and give it a more of an intense look. We can just play with this and make sure we get the exact right thing that we want, and then we can come and adjust the diffusion. So it's just so easy to come in here, especially if this is a client project, just to go in and make these changes or set up another virtual camera. You can literally do this in seconds. Then in this last shot, the only thing that I'm doing is I'm just actually turning on this oven light, which is just a simple point light. And what I am actually invoking is the this little enable right here on the light. So you can see it goes from an off state to an on state. So that's how we do that. And then to actually make these transition, what you can do is take the clips and just run them into each other. So if I took this last clip here and I just pulled it out a little bit, the transition would actually be a cut. But I don't want to cut because I kind of want to show that you can transition into playing. So what you can do is just drag it in, and you can see that it creates this nice curve. And then all you have to do is hit play on the timeline and just see if this feels like the right speed. And if so, great. If not, you can just kind of make another tweak and it's just so easy. It feels like you're making, like I said, a video in a nonlinear editor. So, the last thing that I kind of wanted to show you and talk about, I know this video is kind of like a big hodgepodge of things, but hopefully it'll get you interested in maybe wanting to download this project, which I'll make for free, or you can, create your own projects and kind of use this as a backbone for some of the settings. In the HD render pipeline, the cool thing that you can do is these volumes. So the volumes actually control a lot. Now, let me look for my original volume setting. I believe I just have this exponential fog right now. This is going to be the guy, and if I'm not for sure, you can always go down here and just, yep, you can see here that's the same name. You click on it, it tells you, hey, it's right here, stupid. So you can unroll it. So the volume settings, like I said, you can create these by going create, rendering, and then you can create a scene settings, and this will create a actual volume for your scene. And HD shadows are amazing. This is for real-time lights. You can actually crank up the shadow map so that the light looks very crisp. The visual environment, you can actually change this. You can change it to a procedural sky. I have one of Maxime's HDRs in the background for this kind of scenic view. And then you can, change everything in here, but this is just a volume. It's set to global, but you can actually add a volume boundary on this and untick this. And this could be something that your player enters and then something changes. The indirect lighting controls are really cool because, you can crank up the direct intensity and you can see it right here. And all this can be animated. You can just drag this into the timeline here, and you say just create an animation track. And then you can't animate the diffuse intensity, but what you could do is actually animate this weight. So you could have a kind of a crossfade between the two weights. So still very cool. It's super powerful. But what about if we wanted to have like volumetric God rays? Well, if you've been following the HD render pipeline, there is a volumetric setting that's in here. So let me go ahead and just untick these guys and unmute them. So what this does here at the beginning is I have these different states that you can see are set to active. And let me just kind of pull this back here. So now we have a clip where the volume setting becomes active. So we just have to turn this on. And then our direct light becomes active. And then we have these volumetric awesome God rays coming in through the project. And you can see that, if I wanted to extend this to the next shot, all I have to do is just drag these out. And then all of a sudden for these first two shots, we have these like really awesome, like blooming kind of God rays coming into this kitchen. You can see my crazy dolly track. And I can actually just go back to the animator here and just change this back to 1. So we can kind of see just this nice kind of dolly. Yeah. And I mean, these look great. It's only going to get better. Some of the hardest things were just figuring out like the right settings for this. So you have to have like a real-time light in order for this to work. So these are my settings here. The intensity is cranked up just so we can see it. But if you actually go to the Light Explorer and you can see the real-time light, if I scroll over a little bit more, I don't have it set to affect the diffuse and the specular. So it's just casting into the volumetric fog. So you have to actually come in here, and in the visual environment, you have to switch the fog type to volumetric, or else it won't show up. Let me just demonstrate that. So you can see, set that to volumetric. You have to add some of these override components, one of which is the volumetric fog and the actual lighting controller. And this is like a distance kind of setting, because if you crank this up to like something crazy like 500, you're not going to get near as well. Let me just put my foot in my mouth. But you can see right here. I don't know if it's going to come through in the video compression, but there's these like weird splotchy blobs, and that's because the draw distance is so big. You would rather just have this happening maybe for this interior. You can actually set up a real volume around this actual little interior. Say if this was a game and you could go out this direction, you know, just want to have volumetrics appear in the house. It's really easy to do. They give you so much options and control. And if you really don't know what something does, you can just hover over top of it and it'll give you some idea. So, but yeah, with that turned on, you can get some really awesome volumetric rays coming into the scene, and it's great. It's very performant, and it's super cheap to do. So there's some other goodness that I've kind of put in here. If you actually go and we look through the scene, there is some planar reflections for the floor. So this is pretty new to have inside of Unity. It's been kind of hard to do planar reflections. There's some stuff on the asset store for a while, but Unity never actually gave us a simple planar reflection probe, which they have now. And you can see here some of my settings for it. I'm culling some of the stuff out of here just by doing this far clip plane, because this is another renderable camera that is basically shooting up from the floor to trace reflections. And I have this on the table as well. So if you come up here, and I just kind of threw everything into a null, but if we look for another planar reflection, there's the floor for the table. It's kind of the same story. Again, not firing too far into the scene, and I think that helps a lot with just minimizing some flicker and some other issues. But like I said, this stuff is still in preview. If you go to the package manager, you can see what I have here. So the high definition render pipeline 4.2.0, and this does work with shader graph, which is something I haven't even shown, but it's a procedural node system to allow you to create materials and different shaders within the scene. Thanks so much for checking out this video, and I'm going to do a lot more of these kind of Unity HD render pipeline videos, and I promise I'll go back to basics in future videos of like how you can start using this tool. This was more of just an overview, kind of a little breakdown of my little quirks on this project that I was trying to figure out with the new HD render pipeline and progressive light mapper. But as I get better, I promise that I'll put out more content that shows more of how to build this from start to finish. A lot of it is just curating assets and quality and making sure that you're using texture sizes that are going to be viewable on screen by the player, not go overboard with assets. And modern GPUs really struggle with small triangles. So LODs help a lot with that, and we can take a look at Simplygon for building out these assets. But this is something that, like I've said, for client work, I've done a lot of these kind of visualizations, and definitely for engineering to actually showcase how a product is made, or maybe do an explosion. And we've been working a lot with WebGL. That's something that I'm really excited to see kind of take off, and I think that's going to mature and become very modern, as you know, these cell phones that we have are going to have more capable graphics cards, and hopefully that becomes the universal standard for interactive content on the web. But we'll see what happens. Until then, leave a line if you guys really like this video. If you have any questions, just leave a comment in the comment section below, and give this video a thumbs up if it helped you along in your process. So until next time, take care, guys.